Welcome to Kusa Cast, where we interview some of the most influential people in tourism from around the world. My name is Graeme Watson, and I'm the founder of Kusa Global. The word Kusa means a new dawn, and in 2023, we want to find out just how our guests are working towards that new dawn. Join us and subscribe to future episodes as we hope to inspire you with stories of strength and resilience in the tourism industry. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Kusa Cast. Today, my guest is the wonderful Marion Renk-Rosenthal, who's based in the US. How are you doing today, Marion?
Good morning, Graeme. I'm doing fabulous. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Thanks for joining me. I just to give the listeners a bit of a context of how we know each other, Marion actually made sure that I was an alumni of UCLA. We many years ago, I did a course with the Los Angeles Tourism and Convention Board at UCLA in Los Angeles, and Marion was the lecturer, I suppose, and therefore I am a legitimate alumni member of the UCLA university. So thank you for that, and we'll just go through a bit of Marion's history as well. So Marion, you are of German descent, so just give us a bit of the history of from Germany to Los Angeles to now Tulsa, Oklahoma. How did that all happen?
In multiple steps, so born and raised in Hamburg, Germany, and then finalized education in France. I've always been very interested in foreign countries and cultures, and I studied foreign applied languages in southern France, Nice. Got a master's, and applied for languages means it's applied to business situations. So you have a business education and a law education mixed in. It was preparing us for international business. With a focus, my master's thesis was on tourism. However, I ended up at RTL, Radio Television Luxembourg, because jobs were scarce and they took me. So bum. And I ended up in the US by complete coincidence, the usual story. I had worked with bands in tour management because I spoke English in summertime on school breaks, and met musicians, amongst them my first husband, and he was Los Angeles based, and so I quickly moved, and ever since 1986 I've been US based. I worked in journalism and still do. I still produce documentary films and had written travel books, and that led to me being involved with the travel industry and getting assignments in tour management and event production. So it sort of came full circle, and now I do all of it, depending on what the pandemic allows. And Tulsa happened very recently. This is my first Zoom conference interview in Tulsa. Tulsa has a program called Tulsa Remote. It invites remote workers from the US and foreign countries, as long as you can legally work in the US, to work remotely, to do your remote work from Tulsa, to basically bring more creative, higher education level people into the area. Tulsa was the oil capital of the world 100 years ago, but it sort of had a downslide from the 60s, 70s onward. And there's multiple efforts to bring Tulsa back. It's been mentioned last year by various media sources as the place to see and visit. There's a lot going on in Tulsa, and it's a fascinating story to me as a journalist, and a very exciting time to be in Tulsa, because so much renovation and renewal and reinvention is going on, that a lot of creative people are coming here. Martin Scorsese has an office, Sylvester Stallone is filming here, Leonardo DiCaprio's been here. There's a lot of production companies, and a lot of Hollywood, quote unquote, is coming to Tulsa. Yeah, it's a very exciting place to be at this time.
Yeah, it sounds it. So you did a lot of work with the Los Angeles Tourism and Convention Board. 24 years, it says.
Yes. It started in the late 90s, and we're in 2023. So yeah.
Yeah,
Time flies when you're having fun.
It does. And then journalism and media, travel writing is of course one of your specialities. So what took you into that? I mean, did you need to study for that, or did you just fall into it?
That came out of my journalistic work and my writing for weekly magazines and monthly magazines that I was doing for the German market. The first time I wrote travel books in the 90s, that's what got me involved with LA tourism. And I recently, just at the beginning of the pandemic, I got another book publishing deal with a German publishing house in travel media. Obviously, we had to postpone everything a bit, but my book, California 50 Tips Off the Beaten Track, in German, was published late last summer, and it's on Amazon, and but in German language, and it's a book to give people who have already seen the major sites ideas and tips on what to do. I've been writing all along, and writing has been a big part of my professional life all along.
That's wonderful. Having lived in California for 2 years myself, I did get to do a bit of the off the beaten track. One of the things that come to mind is the Central California wine estates that were featured in the movie Sideways. My friend and I went and did a few of those, and then Big Bear Lake as well. That's something that was pretty fascinating and beautiful as well.
There's a huge amount of variety in Southern California, and as we always say at LA Tourism, you can go either skiing or surfing on the same day, and you can do both if you get up early enough. So it's such a huge variety. California overall has the largest biodiversity in terms of flora and fauna in the world, from the redwoods in the north to the deserts in the southeast, the largest agricultural growing region in the US, the highest continental mountain in the 48 lower states. So except for a mountain in Alaska, we have the highest mountain in the country. We also have the oldest tree, the largest tree, and the tallest tree. There's a lot of exceptional situations that occur in California make it a very special and interesting and fascinating place.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I also broke my shoulder skiing in California. Yes, I thought that I was, gonna learn how to ski finally, and ended up, I'm sure somehow on a triple, double black diamond slopes. Well, that's what I think.
Yes.
It was probably the bunny slope, but I thought it was. And then I just ended up just crashing down. It was in Sierra and South Lake Tahoe. So beautiful places. And what really surprised me about Southern California is all the great things to do. The weather itself, what is it, 330, 340 days of sunshine a year. And that's the reason why the movie industry is there. You helped me you helped me introduce myself to Tony from Red Line Tours, and I worked as a tour guide on Hollywood Boulevard for a couple of years as well, and learned all about the history of the movies and the history of Hollywood. And you learned then that the reason why the movies are where they are is purely because of the weather in Southern California.
Yes, at a time when they couldn't control the weather much, 120 years ago, roughly, they pioneers of the film industry came from New York, where you have rough winters, long winters, and bad weather a lot, to California, discovered California, and said, oh my God, we can shoot outdoors without artificial lights, without a lot of protection for most of the year. And the studios established, the scene established itself from Santa Barbara on down to Hollywood. And 1919 was the year that Hollywood Boulevard commenced. You know more about it than I do because you were specialized tour guide.
10 years ago. Yeah. It was.
And some businesses are still there. The very famous Musso and Frank Grill is a family business now in fourth generation. It's iconic and legendary. It's been continuously open with a short shutdown during the pandemic. Since 1919, and it's still thriving. It's still a place to be. If you are in Hollywood, go to Musa and Frank, have a lunch and have a martini. And they have a very iconic menu, and it's very classic, and it still attracts a lot of Hollywood types because the Stella Adler Acting Academy is literally 2 steps away, and you have a lot of actors in that area. They don't walk up and down Hollywood Boulevard. They come in and out the back door to the parking lot, but you do see them at Musso and Frank.
Yeah, it's a lovely place. I think when I worked across the road at the Egyptian Theatre, it was kind of in my eyesight most of the day. It was right there. So yeah, a lovely. Yeah, I mean Hollywood is a great place to be, and it was a lovely time in my life walking up and down and pointing out all the sights. But so that was certainly something that if someone had to say to me, if you that I was going to be a tour guide on Hollywood Boulevard, I wouldn't have thought that that was in the stars for me. What happened in your career that you can think of that you maybe didn't expect?
Um, Everything of it. I thought I thought when I was going to school, when I went to college, I thought I would be a travel designer planner for French resort chains. I thought I would travel the world from a beautiful tropical beach to beautiful tropical beach, for instance, for maybe Club Méditerranée. That didn't work out too well. And I ended up at Radio Television Luxembourg as a junior producer and editor by complete coincidence. I mean, my auntie suggested it. She was based in Luxembourg, working for the European Parliament, and she said, "Why?" And I was visiting on my way through, and she's like, "Why don't you apply there?" So I did, and lo and behold, they took me. Boom! So that was a that was a surprise, and then opportunities that presented themselves through connections. My longtime cameraman's wife had a event production company, and she was producing a lot of powwow and convention events for Los Angeles tourism. They're a client of hers, so she sold the business a couple of years ago, but they were a long-time client. So that connection led to them, my friends Steve and Janet Elkins, suggesting me to LA Tourism to produce German-speaking presentation videos for an international convention, and that led to all these contacts in the tourism industry little by little. So it was all a surprise. Everything was just sort of happening.
Yes, yes. So I mean, how long did the US shut down for, particularly in like California? I mean, how long were the lockdowns that you couldn't even leave your house?
Well, that really depended on area. Some cities, it was on the municipal level. So some cities never wanted to really lock down, like Huntington Beach and San Clemente in Orange County, were resisting state orders from the get-go. Um, in LA County, things were more severe. Even beaches were blocked for a while. But since so much that we can do is outdoors, things bounced back fairly quickly in many areas. The climate made it a lot easier for us than New York or Chicago or European cities that have cold climates, because restaurants got permits to the cities allowed restaurants to move outside. Some streets were blocked off to vehicular travel to permit these restaurants to set up outdoor terraces. And so with social distancing and in fresh air, we had a lot of, and it actually was lovely. And some streets continue to be like that because there was few of that before, despite our great climate. Now we have a lot more outdoor patio dining spaces and bars. Sports clubs were closed for the longest. Beauty salons had a very long shutdown. There were a lot of funny memes on social media. The Kardashians without their makeup, their fake hair, their wigs, and their nails, and all of that.
Yes, yes. I'm sure they made a plan.
What you really look like without the Botox.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
But it was much more livable for us, and it went up and down with mask requirements. And that was also left up to businesses quite a bit. There have been some spikes this year where indoor masking was required again, but we haven't seen a severe lockdown since summer of 2021. So things have normalized fairly well. What we still see is, though, supply chain issues. For instance, restaurants struggle with lack of workers
Yes.
because the workers many of them had to move on to other professions. So they moved on to working in business cafeterias, in school lunch programs, in industrial kitchen programs, and so on and so forth. And bus drivers moved on to municipal bus driving, truck driving. There was the driver shortage in the Amazon world and in the cargo world. So a lot of the drivers with Class A commercial driver licenses, meaning allowed to drive trucks, commercial trucks, switched from bus driving. So now you sometimes see transportation company owners behind the wheel because there's just not enough drivers. And in some high-end full-service restaurants, service can be excruciatingly slow, even in very high-end establishments, and the business models have changed. A lot of restaurants have switched to a lot of takeout or counter ordering, and then you get a number and they deliver to the table, but the full table service is sort of disappearing, and very few restaurants maintain that concept, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that's one of the questions I was going to ask. So, I mean, you are working from Tulsa in a remote working sort of program that they've started in California, or in the States in general, because I know in the UK particularly there is a lot of remote working happening, you know, in the tourism industry, as well as people try and get back to, you know, claw back some of the lost income. I think it is a big money saver to have people working from home. Do you see that as an ongoing trend in the States, particularly in somewhere like California or Los Angeles, where traffic is such a big issue and it can take you 1.5 hours some days to get into work?
Yes, and our traffic seems to be worse in California. I mean, I was in California 2 weeks ago. I'm going back in a week, so I'm still back and forth a lot. However, it's a big conflict now, because most employers, especially if the executive branch is of older date,
yes,
want workers to come back at least 4 days a week. A lot of young workers do not want to return to the office. How much productivity is happening is up for debate, whether that's an issue or not an issue. Since I moved to California and immediately started working as a correspondent for German publishing houses, print, television, and radio, I've always been a remote worker since 1986, just by the nature of that beast. And so I had to learn the self-discipline. You're not sitting on the couch. You're not watching daytime soaps. You have to teach your family and friends that you're not available for long chit-chats and coffee breaks during a work day. You're working.
Yes, but I mean, that's in an office as well. You kind of have to teach your colleagues that, look, you know, we can't go on long coffee breaks and smoke breaks, and because we have to work. So that's what I think that the management have to understand as well, that you know, as I've said many times, just because someone's in an office doesn't necessarily mean they're working for the 8 hours, you know. So, but I think it has become, particularly as the younger generation, the millennials, come through, it's becoming an expectation, I think, you know, particularly in places like California. And, you know, for the travel industry, it's you know, it's a matter of being able to just try and get back the income that was lost, because of course hospitality and travel were hit the most. And you know, do businesses need these big expensive offices? You know, that's the question.
I don't think so. The agencies I work, first of all, LA Tourism has downsized tremendously. And a lot of the staffers, I mean, there's meetings, there's brainstorming, there's a lot of public events and presentations again. However, a lot of people work from home at least part of the week, and office space has been reduced tremendously. It's an issue for the commercial real estate world, because a lot of office spaces in Los Angeles and San Francisco are standing empty. It's the same for the agencies. There was a big downsizing, and people can be anywhere now. They do the same amount of work. For me, things have bounced back. Beginning to bounce back, I should say, with offers to take business travel groups on scientific trips, on meeting trips, on incentive and reward trips, and all of that is planned by workers that belong to agencies, but that are all working from home. And then every now and then there's a meeting and a gathering, but basically you can do the same job from home as long as you have internet access and a phone.
Yes, yeah.
And as long as you're dedicated to that, to delivering. And that's, I think, the secret to success is meet your deadlines and deliver.
Yes. And I think a lot of people go over and above the call of duty to deliver because they want to prove that it's working for them, the whole remote working. But so what's been obviously it's been a long and eventful career. Is there what's been the most exciting travel project that you've worked on that you can think of? Or has there just been so many?
I really love travel, so it's always fun to meet people, to show them sites that are incredibly stunning and leave. For me, the goal has always been and always is to make sure that my participants, my guests, take home memories for a lifetime, that they have experiences that are unique to them, not prefabricated. I always try to put it into context of what matters to them. And just before the pandemic, I had several trips that were in the agricultural science and research world. I learned a huge amount of stuff because obviously I didn't know much about that. So I had to do a lot of research and I learned a lot. And it was fascinating to take, for instance, a group of German vegetable growers to the growing areas in California and Arizona. We're talking Imperial Valley. You were in El Centro, California, Yuma, Arizona, Central Valley, Bakersfield area, Salinas, Northern California. They were exploring methods of irrigation, because in Germany the climate change means we don't have the constant rain anymore, so all of a sudden they have to figure out how to water the veggies.
Yes.
And so and one place that does that well is California and Arizona. So it was fascinating to me because I always learn something new. I always meet new people. And I learned a lot on that trip. But it's also great to go back. I hope to go back to Monument Valley and Bryce Canyon and do the canyons this summer. And there's a few tours that are penciled in. So it's a fascinating area in the world. Last year I had one experience and I wrote a blog post after that shock because one not in the US residing over-the-road manager voiced something about, when we're driving through the deserts, I just turn on some movie and leave him alone. The easy way out for a guy to not really work. Well, Mojave is one of the most fascinating areas in the world. There are animals that exist only there, that adapt to an extreme environment. There is the most advanced aerospace industry in the world. Skunk Works in Lancaster, for instance, in Palmdale, the test pilot programs, the secret military programs, a huge amount of filming, geological sites that are just outstanding. The Joshua trees that are only growing in a couple of places in the whole world. I mean, there's just so much to talk about and see and point out. And I was shocked that she didn't know anything about that. And I think you do a lot of research, your tours, your work as a consultant, everything is well researched and to the point. And I think that's really important in our world in hospitality, to let our guests and our clients know what is there, and that's our job to present that. And I love that part of it. I'm a storyteller, whether it's a documentary film or a tour program. I love to be prepared and have the information.
Is your body of work all in one place, or are there links to it on your website? Or where can people see some of the stuff you've done?
I have a website. It's my last name, Renk, Rosenthal.com. And the links to my blog and my social media are there. I'm also on Instagram, where I post fairly frequently, as well as on Facebook, and then on LinkedIn, of course. And for the travel information, it's best to go to my blog and to my Instagram.
Okay, great. And then what? Always try and get a bit of information from guests in terms of how they structure their day and productivity wise. In the terms of the technology tools, have you got? Is there any particular tool that you use or an app that helps you through, or are you a pen and paper kind of person still?
I'm on my computer all the time. I'm an Apple girl, so all my products are Apple.
Yeah.
So it all syncs. Zoom, essential. A special headset microphone, like you also have, so that the sound is okay. That's important. Clear communication. App-wise, I just use the usual stuff. I research a lot on Google and Google Scholar. So that for part of my work, I make a lot of phone calls and I network a lot, whether that's LinkedIn, Instagram, following people on Instagram and researching hashtags. For instance, to prepare for Tulsa, I started following a huge amount of Tulsa-related social media feeds and find out that there's a lot of fascinating stuff happening in this area. And pay attention, because Route 66 has a centennial. There will be 2026 will be a huge year for Route 66. My Harley Davidson driving travel agents are already very excited about that upcoming. There will be a huge amount of special events all along. But Oklahoma has the longest continuous stretch that is still in existence of Route 66, and there will be a lot of things happening in Oklahoma in 2026 related to Route 66, which comes right through Tulsa.
Great. Sounds good. Yeah. I mean, not many people know that Route 66 actually ends at Santa Monica Pier. So, yeah. So there's quite often, if you go down Santa Monica Pier, you'll see all the Harley Davidson guys there, all taking pictures.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal for French and German travelers. I'm not so sure about whether the whether people from the UK do those trips. I haven't encountered any, but the French and the Germans, German speaking, I should say, Austrians, Swiss, and Germans, are fascinated by that slice of American history. It's very Americana.
Yes.
And that it's a 3-week trip for the most programs. And there's a huge amount of variety of American slice of life that you travel through at the time, plus major natural sites. And then when I lived in LA, I lived in West Hollywood for a while, right off of Santa Monica Boulevard, where the old Warner Studios are, which were the United Artists Studios back in the day, 100 years ago. That's Route 66.
Yeah.
So Route 66 really ties everything together from Chicago to the west, and it was the first road that really connected the west to the rest of the country, therefore called the Mother Road. And it's everything, all the crossing roads were offshoots of 66, and the location of 66 was chosen because it was already a Native American trail, and then a Spanish explorer trail, because it's once you hit Tulsa, we have a snow situation right now. However, from here on down, you have short winter breakouts basically for a few days, but for the most part, Route 66 through this area is traditionally fairly mild, and it was also avoiding hostile territory 100 years ago, or before that, actually, during the exploration days. And I learned all that in Kingman, Arizona, where they have a very nice museum for Route 66 at the visitor center.
Great. I mean, you are a font of knowledge about America, so you're definitely in the right field where you write books and do documentaries. So I highly encourage everybody to check out your website, which I'll put on the description of the podcast. And is it mainly in German, or do you do a lot of English related stuff as well?
My social media and my blogging is all in English.
Okay.
And most Germans are pretty strong in English. And there's also on my blog an automated Google Translate app, so you can click it over to your language. And then, of course, the translation sometimes is a little weird.
Yes.
However, you know what, you always get the meaning of it. So it's easy to click over to German, French, or Spanish actually on my blog.
Yeah. So obviously the whole world during the pandemic, it was a very strange time. Everybody didn't know what was going on, and I'm so glad we can talk about it in the past tense now. It has been roughly, just under a year really that people have been traveling again and moving around the world and getting back to what they were in 2019. What do you think still needs to change in order for everybody to kind of get back on their feet? Is there something that you think the world, you just think, well, we need to do that in order to kind of just move forward again?
Yes, from our industry point of view, some agencies that I've spoken with and that do a lot of research and have always been sort of boutique agencies, they are switching the way they do business. Is really a reinvention, because I think a lot of people are still a little leery about big city travel, about a lack of restaurant availability. Very large travel groups are still struggling.
Yeah.
And the quality of that type of travel is not really what it used to be. There are agencies that do these package deals that are very rushed, where you have large groups going through large programs in a short amount of time. And it's exhausting, and always has been. And I've always thought it wouldn't be my favorite type of travel. You see a lot. Basically, it's an orientation so that you can then later on decide your own independent trip to explore more in depth. Because literally had programs that were packaged on the internet in Europe, and it's like Death Valley in the morning, Grand Canyon in the afternoon. When you know the area, you know it's completely impossible.
Yeah.
And it was impossible.
Yeah.
And the guests were not happy.
Yes.
So I see a big movement, and also I have a lot of contacts on my social media that are former participants in groups, people that were part of my travels or part of my seminars. Everybody expresses an interest in more in-depth, more local. And then from a young people, especially, for instance, my nephews, consider their carbon footprint.
Yes.
They consider sustainability. They consider local economy. How much is their travel impacting local small business? And did you ever meet Curtis Tucker when we were in Los Angeles?
I think I might have. Yes, I think I might have. Yes.
He's a tour guide. He has a company, and he was the first one back up and running because he refitted his buses for social distancing and safety. And he has a lot of contracts with local senior citizen clubs in the Los Angeles area. And once they were the first ones to have access to vaccines, and as soon as they were vaccinated, they wanted to have fun again and get out. And he has all these very specialized tours that are local for day trips, or a couple of day trips here and there, to basically some national parks in the area, lots of it in food-based, Route 66-based, architecture-based, sports arena-based tours. There are lots of specialty tours. And he said that is really huge. He's very successful because it's specific trips where you really have an experience. And the restaurants he chooses are not the chain restaurants where you can seat a busload and get them in and out in 90 minutes flat. It's these meet the family in a taco place.
Yes.
It's Chinese dim sum in a place where you meet the chefs or the person who represents the restaurant, who is English speaking, who can talk about the cultural context and the recipes and the history of the food. So it's more of an experience, and you sort of graze your way through Chinatown, or you graze your way through Little Tokyo, and nibbling on lots of great delicious foods. And that style of travel is really gaining traction, and it gives you more an in-depth personal experience with the location and in the context of that location.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big trend I recommend that highly, because I think people want slower travel.
Yeah, we're finding that in Africa too. People are wanting to do that immersive travel where you meet and have dinner in someone's house and they teach you the culture and you eat the local food. And also people are wanting, as you say, to buy local, to help small and medium enterprises. So that is a great thing. And that wasn't as prevalent, I think, before the pandemic as it is now, because I think people realize how fragile everybody's ability to earn money is, and I think everybody just wants to help as much as they can. Everybody get back on their feet. It's a wonderful spirit. I think the world has got. So that's we were taught a lot, but I think there's a lot to be grateful for, actually, from everything that the world has learned.
Exactly. I think, one of my friends who's a therapist from the early stages on was saying, when everybody was in 2020 having meltdowns emotionally and mentally and physically and financially, especially in our world, she kept saying it's an opportunity because nothing will be the same. And so you can look at it from, oh my God, everything's over. Or you can also look at it from, what can we do differently? Nothing will be exactly like before. And people's comfort levels in terms of social life and experiences and what they focus on and what priorities they set has shifted. And I think it's a great chance to come up with new, exciting, fascinating itineraries and experiences, and reinvent travel, and make it a new experience for everybody. And I think that's a great opportunity for all of us.
Yes, absolutely. So it's going to be very interesting to see how travel grows, and I'm sure you will be at the forefront of writing it and documenting all about it. And thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast, and let's hope we can catch up again in a few months and see how everything's going for you there in Tulsa.
I'll give you guys an update on Tulsa. Happy to do so. And the one worry is tornadoes. So we'll see how I handle that one. I'm used to earthquakes. Tornadoes are new.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. But let's maybe now you got me thinking about getting on a Harley in 2026 and coming through Route 66.
I hope you visit me here beforehand, here or in LA. I'll be back and forth.
Yeah.
And on my bucket list, definitely, I follow your social media. I can't wait to come to Africa. You have such amazing trips and locations that are exclusive and not overrun by crowds. And I just have to do that. One of these days, I'll be there. Thank you so very much for having me.
Thanks, Marion. And we'll see you soon, hopefully in Africa. Thanks a lot, Marion.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning into Kusa Cast, where we explore the world of tourism with leaders from all corners of the globe. Join me, Graeme Watson, for future episodes as we dive into the latest trends and insights from the industry. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating, and we'll see you next time on Kusa Cast.